Every day, you essentially pay your dues by doing the harder thing when it's the right thing to do. All right, here we are. Welcome back to week 4, our 4th installment of our Q&As. We collected a whole bunch of questions about a month ago and collected all the emails that I get and the DMs and stuff like that and put them into some categories of questions that are really common. I love getting the emails. I love helping people. I love the DMs and the Twitter responses and stuff like that. But there's a lot of them, and it's sometimes challenging to get to all of them. And it's also challenging to answer these questions via just text or via just chat or email because they're nuanced and they have a lot more complexity to them. It's not like a straight black and white answer. And this, category of stuff is probably the most important when it comes to that. More of a nuanced discussion is culture discussions in gymnastics. So what we'll do is go through 5 that are, again, common ones I get in a lot of different ways. And I'll try my best to give some more in-depth ideas for that to help people out. So first one here, Brianne says, our coaches and myself struggle so much with parents who are constantly putting a lot of pressure on their young kids and oftentimes seem like they are overbearing, trying to coach their kids to do what they think is right. It's making our coaching staff miserable. What can I do or what can we do? Okay. Very hard question because this is tough. I always start from this point of view from making this mistake, but try your best to first start with a little bit of empathy and a little bit of perspective taking. Okay. Most parents, the majority of parents in my experience, are great people who just want what's best for their kids. Okay. So they want their kids to be happy. They want their kids to be healthy. They want their kids to be doing well in the sport they enjoy. They don't want to see them, struggle. So most parents are just trying to do what they think is best. And a lot of them don't really understand gymnastics. So maybe they don't understand that they're kind of overstepping boundaries, or that they're making some things that are maybe not appropriate when the coaches should be doing that. Not all parents. Some parents blatantly know that they're just overstepping their boundaries, or they think they have a little bit of ego about them. They want to try to do it better than the coach. But in my experience, that's like 5%. It's really not the vast majority of people. So with the point of view of empathy in mind, okay, if you're thinking about if you had a son or a daughter who was really frustrated in gymnastics or saw teammates who were making progress or they couldn't get a skill or they were dealing with injuries, you see that athlete for 2 or 3 or 4 days per week for a couple hours per day, but the parents live with those kids, right? Every car ride, every dinner conversation, every in between, they have to see a child who's maybe upset or frustrated or having something going on. So I think most parents are coming from that position where they're just trying to find out a way to help their athletes. So if you have that in mind and you can keep that in the forefront of your brain, when you have conversations with parents, it's a little bit easier sometimes to be empathetic and not be on the front foot or like offensive and be so, taken aback when they're upset. But what can we do to help make sure parents are feeling like they're not overstepping their boundaries? For me, and I've learned a lot of this from my wonderful friend, Eva Shute, who's been on the podcast and talked about this before. So it all starts with really good communication to the parents before problems arise, okay? So you have to have a team handbook and employee handbook, which goes the same way, for outlining what is acceptable behavior for the cultural guidelines for everyone to follow, so everyone is happy at the gym. Okay, so you have to outline, okay, these are the rules or the regulations or guidelines of how we behave at practice, how we behave at meets, how we handle grievances, how we have professional disagreements, how we have conflict management with some of our staff members if a parent does have a concern. There has to be a very clear outlined way to go about those problems. Vice versa, you have to lay out, okay, what does it take to be a level 4 gymnast? What kind of things do we need for skills or strength or attendance? Because sometimes parents are getting upset because they don't know why their athlete is maybe not moving up or why their athlete is not doing well at a meet. And so if you have outlined the ethical and moral guidelines of your gym that's acceptable, how to move up to all the levels or how to get into classes or how to move up into the next prereq team. And you also have some clear boundaries again about what is acceptable behavior for the athletes, about the way that they kind of interact and do things like that. Or if they have really high level goals, what scores do they need to get these things? What skills do they need to move up to this level? What kind of performances do they need to have every day at the gym with the way they interact with their teammates and the way they compete and they train mentally and emotionally to go alongside some of their gymnastic stuff. Okay. So if you don't have that, that's step one, is creating that handbook and putting it in stone and working with parents to create that and have everybody agree upon it. In the same way in our gyms that we We have the athletes make our community guidelines and we all agree on them with the coaches. That's like the acceptable moral standards we all believe in. The parents have to be involved in this process too to make sure it's fair and they understand it and they're really on board with it. Okay. So once you have those in place, the second step is through parent meetings, through one-on-one meetings, through an open door policy where someone can come in and just talk. You're constantly talking about these things and making them normal to reference those guidelines about what acceptable behavior is. So when something happens, like someone is coaching from the stands or is speaking up or yelling at a meet, you can reference those behaviors as not appropriate and not attack the person. In the same way, we don't want to attack the kids or the athletes, but their behaviors are what we're concerned about. Same thing goes for parents. Same thing goes for coaches, right? We hold ourselves accountable from the behaviors we show, the choices we make, not, hey, you as a person is something wrong with you. So if you have those things in place, and if you have regular parent meetings, you have regular conversations with the athletes and coaches, you're over communicating about, hey, you're struggling with these few skills, we need these to move up, or this is something we got to work on, or your attendance or your attitude, something like that. Parents aren't blindsided when these problems come up. In my experience, if you do that, it becomes a lot easier to handle some of these problems because you're never attacking someone. You're never grieving in a bad way. You're just trying to deal with a problem at hand. Okay. So you have those rules and guidelines. You have those things outlined. Now, the second piece to this is more on the leadership of your gym. So the head coach, the gym owner, that person who is in charge, by being in that position, takes on the responsibility to handle some of the things that do step over the boundary lines for the staff and to help them out. So my boss, Eva, she's incredible. She never was afraid of putting someone appropriately in their place if they overstep their guidelines, whether that was me, if I did something that I made a mistake, whether I was a coach, whether it was an athlete, whether it was a parent. She, again, references those behaviors and holds that person accountable. So what I've experienced in a lot of gyms is the coaches are having problems with parents and are trying to get help from gym owners or leaders, and it's just falling through the cracks, or the gym owner doesn't have a spine to stand up and say, this is not appropriate. You can't act like this at a meet. You can't act like this with our kids and talk back. And so at that point, if you get to the point where it's not working like that, you have to be able to have someone who says, hey, maybe this isn't a great fit. Maybe we've tried this multiple times. We've tried to have discussions. We've tried to talk to you about what's appropriate versus not. And you continue to maybe not act in a way that's in line with our cultural standards. So we're just going to have a discussion of, is this a good fit for you? Multiple times of the same offense can lead to that. And majority of things that I've dealt with, 99.9%, with good communication, with discussion points of why someone's upset, you can figure it out, right? Or you can alarm them and say, hey, I know you might think this is not a big deal, but yelling across the gym during a practice is not appropriate. It's actually unsafe. And so we always care about the health and safety of your daughter or your son. We're trying to keep them safe. So that's not appropriate. That's going to be distracting, right? And so we care about your athletes. We want them to be safe. Don't you want that too? And you can communicate with them on their level, okay? And I think a lot of times if you kind of say from the parents' perspective of what they expect, what they want, you have those guidelines, you have someone who can really enforce those rules when needed rarely. A lot of those things are much better, and it takes off the pressure cooker aspect of parents on top of coaches sometimes. So long answer, Brianne, but it's a tough one. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of advice or something to work with, and you can talk to your staff maybe at the next staff meeting for it, okay? All right. So Tim says, gymnastics coaching right now is so hard in our day and age. It honestly feels like I am always looking over my shoulder, stepping on eggshells at practice, or worried about something related to a safe sport complaint. Okay. I find it's not fun to coach anymore. Any advice for this burnt out guy would be helpful. So Tim, first of all, it sounds like a very somber question submission. So I'm sorry for what you're going through. I understand what you're going through. I completely know how challenging the last few years have been being a gymnastics coach. But I want to kind of say a couple things here, a few points of maybe tough love of just like understanding perspective, and then hopefully some things that will help you and many other people who are in the situation. Okay. So the first thing I think is important is we in the sport of gymnastics right now, call it unfair. If it's for not everybody, call it frustrating, whatever you want to say. But you have to realize the last 20, 30, 40 years, some pretty rough things have happened to the athletes, right? Not everybody. I always say I believe that 90 to 95% of coaches are amazing people doing the right thing every day, and you never hear about them because they're awesome. And they're doing the right thing. They're taking care of kids. They mean well. They're not monsters at all, right? None. And I think that's really, I think it's true in my heart. However, 5 to 10% of coaches, and unfortunately in some areas of the sport or world more so, are really doing things that are inappropriate. they're abusive, they're talking down to kids, they're taking out their own personal life issues on the kids with anger management problems, or they're living an unhealthy lifestyle. They're really in it for the money or the fame or the ego. So what's happening right now in gymnastics is we're all kind of paying the piper for what's gone wrong. And because there's been so much collateral damage with some of these things. Okay. So yes, it kind of sucks. And it sucks that some of us have to deal with the whiplash effect, even though we're maybe doing the right thing and we're trying to be great people in the sport. Obviously, there's a lot of administrative stuff and business stuff of cleaning house of people who are maybe not appropriate to be in those positions of leadership. But it kind of needs to happen right now. Honestly, I think it does need to happen, that we need to go through this little bit of tumultuous time to have some problems and get better reporting and safe sport and stuff, because even one of those people allowed to slip through the cracks is too many to possibly damage a kid's life. So the pendulum is swinging right now. I think we've gone through some really aggressively left side of the pendulum and we're coming back to the middle. But for right now, yes, we do have to kind of just tough it out and continue to just lead a very virtuous life and live by our values and our ethics and make those choices that are harder, even if that does mean sacrificing in the short term some stress. So that in mind, I've gone through this and I've definitely had some burnout for sure as a coach. And my first piece of advice is I would actually take a step back and I would try to figure out, reconnect with why you're coaching, why you're involved in gymnastics, and why you want to be a part of the athletes' lives. What is it that you love about the sport, right? So really iron out your values and your virtues and what you believe in as an ethical and moral framework, or an ethical engineering scaffolding at why you run your life the way you do. And if you have those clearly outlined, you'll probably find that you really do it because you enjoy it. You want to help the athletes. You enjoy the sport. It's fun to coach. And it makes it a little bit easier to kind of wrap your head around why it's so frustrating. But realize that your choices are very much the roadmap to those things, those ethics and those morals and those values. So your choices every single day as a coach, how you talk to an athlete, how you talk with a parent, how you handle a conflict, how you deal with frustration, those represent your values. And so if you want to continue to make a difference, you'll continue to make choices that reflect those positive values. Okay. That being said, I realize how hard it is. I realize how challenging it is to be a coach right now. A lot of coaches are overworked and underpaid, and they don't get the help or the education they need. They're working weekends, they're traveling to meets, they're trying to deal with parents who are breathing down their neck. I understand how challenging it can be. So for that, I think it's really important for people to have hobbies and to have things they can do outside of the gym that makes the rest of their life have other things to work on, okay, or other things to do. If your entire life revolves around your coaching and you're obsessed with it, like I get it. I have passions I'm obsessed about. I love that. If all you do though is gymnastics, you're making yourself vulnerable to be depressed or anxious when things aren't going well. So try to have some things outside the gym that have nothing to do with coaching, right? Go fishing, trading cards, watch movies, go see shows, right? Music, instruments, dance, friends, family, go hiking, kayaking, find something that is not related to gymnastics that you can turn your brain off and go enjoy your life and not think about the struggles of the gym or the frustrations of the gym. Everybody has different hobbies, right? Don't think that you just burn yourself out and dedicate your whole life to coaching. You need to recharge your batteries, right? You also need to lead a healthy lifestyle to take care of yourself. Sleep, drink water, eat well, exercise, go to therapy, read books, whatever you need to do, right? You have to take care of yourself outside of the gym in order to make sure you have the emotional bandwidth to deal with stuff inside the gym. Okay. So those would kind of be my three pieces of advice. And yes, hopefully it's not too much tough love, but like, yeah, if I don't think this is the person submitting the question, because honestly, the person listening to the podcast and submitting a question probably isn't in this bucket. But for some people saying like, oh, it's not fun to coach anymore, or it's too high strung, or I can't even coach anymore. If your version of not fun to coach is you can't yell at anybody anymore and you can't scream and berate kids, or you can't punish somebody with conditioning, or do whatever you need to win, or, like be really hardcore and hard pushing those only results, only meets, and there's nothing wrong with winning, but that's all you care about. If that's not fun to coach, maybe coaching's not for you. If all you care about is the money, the medals, the fame, screaming, yelling, making a scene, feeding your ego, then maybe this isn't for you, right? If you think that not fun to coach anymore means it kind of sucks that we're going through this period of where some people who don't deserve the whiplash effect are getting caught in the storm, and it's really tough because of how much is changing. I understand that. It's frustrating to change. It's hard. There's a lot of new information. But if it's really about you can't have an egotistical feed and just like be aggressive and yelling and screaming, which is, again, 1% to 5% of people involved in gymnastics, that's a different case. But for everybody else who's just trying to do the best thing and is really in a tough situation, I feel for you. I'm empathetic towards you. It's why I still run shift, because I want to help people out. But I guess just have a consideration for what side of the fence you fall on there. It sounds like you're not in that bucket, but for some people, we do need to pay the piper a little bit. So I just kind of let that unfortunately sink in and try your best to, like I said, have hobbies, have things to decompress, do things outside the gym besides just be obsessed with gymnastics. Okay. All right. Next one here comes from Steph. It says, how do you handle kids who are misbehaving at practice? We have one gymnast who always seems to be talking or is upset, is crying, giving attitude, ignoring the drills, and not putting in any effort for strength or skills. It seems like she is just there for the social aspect to be with her friends, not actually doing gymnastics. Okay. And I included this one because Eva has taught a very good way to deal with some of these things. And I think 9 times out of 10, this kind of 3-step process is really helpful. And then the 1 times out of 10 we'll talk about is how you handle that a little bit differently. So for me personally, I rarely find that somebody is intentionally trying to be disrespectful. They're cruel. They're trying to be mean, right? Little kids and most kids don't have that in their body. They're trying to just fit in and enjoy their time or deal with stress. So I always tend to start the conversation like I do with parents and empathy, of starting with empathy and compassion with the kids. And I never used to do this when I was younger and it got me in hot water, but I try to pull the athlete aside who's being upset or talking back and say like, hey, are you okay? Like, is everything all right? Because, Sarah I know, and this, I just made a made up name up, but the Sarah that I know wouldn't be this sassy or wouldn't be this upset or wouldn't let this little problem really bug them. Right. So like, is there something going on? Is there something outside the gym bothering you? Is there something in the gym that's really like you're scared of something or you're frustrated that I can help you with? Like, just talk to me here and let me know what's going on. And that alone, you could argue the science behind why that works from the psychology point of view is very helpful and valid, but also on a human level, you start the conversation on an empathetic back foot, not an offensive front foot. You're not attacking someone like, why aren't you doing the drills, right? Like you're saying like, what's wrong? Can I help you? Can we talk it out? So most of the times someone will say like, oh, I'm just tired, I'm not feeling it, or this is just frustrating, I can't get this skill, or I had 2 tests at school today, or my boyfriend or girlfriend and I are fighting, or something is going on with family or friends. There's almost always another confounding variable, right? Sometimes it is like, I just don't want to do it today and blah blah blah, right? So there are some times that happens, but it opens the dialogue, and then you can kind of say like, okay, well, I understand that, I've been there before, I get it. However, we're here to do gymnastics and we agreed upon this, right? This is what we do when we're here. It's not that we can't talk and joke and have fun, but we do have to get something done. And so if you're talking a lot, you're skipping stations, that kind of stuff, it's a little dangerous because you're not going to be ready for skills. You might make a mistake and get hurt, but also you're unfortunately a little distracting to the rest of the athletes and to us as well as coaches. So let's just try to pick it up. And I know it's tough. Let's try to get through this event. Let's try to get through these stations, do the best you can. And then we'll move on to a new event or we'll have a new day or something like that. Okay. You let the athlete go back to their circuit rotation. Most of the time that talk will resonate well with them. If not, they continue to have problems. Okay. Again, pull the athlete over and you kind of outline a little bit more, not like mean, but sternly now about like, hey, listen, we had to talk about this. Okay. I told you that this was probably not appropriate behavior, right? I'm not critiquing you. I'm not yelling at you, not critiquing you as a human, but just saying your behavior right now is really not in line with what's okay here. What's allowed to do a safe practice. So you say, right now I'm going to give you a choice, right? I'm going to let you take a drink, go take a walk and kind of collect yourself. But you have 2 choices. One is you can kind of change your behavior, rejoin the group, do the best you can. And I know maybe not the most productive practice or happiest practice, but just kind of get through what we need to get through. Or we're going to stop because this is dangerous, right? We're going to take this event off. We're going to give you another assignment. We're going to let you, do something else, not like sit in the corner and punish you, but like, we're not going to do this right now because it's dangerous for you. You're not getting a lot done and you're distracting other people. So it's slightly more of a serious tone. And you just say like, these are your choices. Take a walk, go to the bathroom, grab a drink of water, whatever. And then let me know what you want to do. Okay. And I like that approach from what Eva has taught me because again, it's not like mean, it's not yelling, but you're giving the balls in their court. You're saying like, these are your choices. Right. And this is what Gretchen Kerr has taught a lot in her professor work is like natural consequences, right? So it's not punishment. It's not screaming and yelling. It's the natural consequences of your choices. Choices have actions, choices have consequences. Some are positive, some are negative. And this is what you teach an athlete about the real world, right? Like at a job, you can get your work done and you can be in line with what you said you were going to do when you signed up for this job, or you're going to get punished. I mean, you're going to get some sort of reprimation and you're going to lose your job. So not that you're screaming at someone, but you just present those consequences as a natural resolution to their choices. And so it's in their court. Okay. Same thing happens. They go about stuff 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time, those two things, somebody at least gets through the day. They get the practice and it's not glamorous, but it happens. Okay. The very rare 1% or 0.1% where someone truly is continuing to be distracting and they're truly continuing to be attitude and motivation issues. Okay. The third time, it's like 3 strikes. You're like, you pull them back over. You say, okay, listen, you chose, and this is the consequence. It's not working. We can't do this right now. It's unsafe. It's distracting. You're making it a tough time for me and the coaching staff. So we're going to either have you go home today, not because I'm punishing you and screaming at you, but because this is not working right now. And it's dangerous for you to be here. Okay. Because you're going to get hurt if you're distracted or not following the directions. So I'm either going to have you go home if you can drive yourself, or we're going to call your parents and they're going to come pick you up. And again, no hard feelings. Tomorrow, fresh start. You'll see me come in with a smile. We'll talk about it. We'll figure out why. We'll make sure you understand why I'm asking you to leave right now or kind of do a different assignment. And then we're going to kind of move on from there. And that's the key point is the next day, you're not holding a grudge. You're not bitter. You're not throwing shade side eye. You're not keeping them in the corner, not talking to them. You're not ignoring them, psychological warfare. You're dealing with the problem head on and saying, these were the natural consequences of the choices that you made yesterday. Okay. So that happens. And again, almost everybody goes through one of those 3 steps and they're okay. Very, very, very rarely. Like I can think of 2 examples in my entire career coaching where someone chronically is a problem at practice over and over and over. Then you have to get higher management involved, get parents involved and have a meeting and say, like, we need to talk about what's going on. Is there a problem with goals? Like, do you not have the same goals that we have when you're not in the right group? Do you not have the same commitment you used to? Do you want to do something else? Are the parents involved? They're not pushing the right, goal, and we have a different goal. Have your goals changed and you're scared to tell us? And sometimes that works out where it's like, no, I don't want to do this gymnastics class anymore. I don't want to do this level. I'm tired. I have too much stuff going on. And they just kind of want to talk through some really hard stuff, or it just straight up isn't working, right? They just do not fit your cultural style, and that's okay. And in that point, Eva and I have had those conversations. One athlete I can think of in my entire career, because saying just like, okay, listen, totally get it. I understand we care about you still, but this is not a good fit. Your style, what you want, what our style, what we want is not matching. And it's our personal responsibility to what's best for the gym and the kids in the groups to make sure it's working for everybody. So this is probably not a good fit. We'll probably have to either find you a different program or a different gym. We're happy to help you with that, but this is not a good fit. And then you foster, the progression of maybe finding a new gym. This one athlete was unfortunately the worst case scenario. Eva had to say, okay, well, we're just not gonna allow you back, right? This is not a good fit anymore, and we don't think we're a good fit for you. So we're gonna just say you're not welcome back anymore. And unfortunately, again, one time out of the thousands of kids that I've coached. Okay, so long answer, but that's a complex one. So I wanted to really make sure I spent some time there. But hopefully, Steph, that does help a little bit, and you can have some things to talk through with your staff or with your parents about that. Okay. And you explain that 3-step process in parent meetings, and you explain it to the athlete of how you're going to do that so that they don't, get blindsided in the middle of practice. But it requires no yelling, no screaming, no problems at all. All right. Okay. Tori says, our gym turns over staff, particularly young junior staff, so much, and it feels like no one, in parentheses here, particularly our younger coaches, wants to work anymore. They call out all the time. They're going through the motions coaching. And then oftentimes they leave after 6 months ago and gym hop or find somebody else to work for. What do we do to make this generation less lazy and more committed to their work? This one was heavy. And I'm going to give some tough love first. Okay. First of all, Tori, thank you for listening to the podcast. I appreciate your support. But the last sentence is really overgeneralizing, and it's really, really not fair. It's too black and white for all this, right? What do we do to make this generation less lazy and committed to their work, right? So you're saying that the entire generation of people under the age of 18 are lazy, they don't want to work, they're not committed, blah, 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 right? I understand you're probably frustrated with your staff and you're frustrated with maybe some people in the younger generation who are in your gym, but please realize that this is not the case for everybody, right? There are probably some great people on your staff or at your gym, the kids you work with, that are under the age of 20 even, and they're really hardworking and they're really kind people. Okay. So don't let your emotional frustrations translate to every single person who's under the age of 20 and works for you is lazy and doesn't want to do their work. Okay. So first, try to put that in context. Okay. Second piece here is I have found that it's as I move up more in working with people and managing people and trying to help with teams or kind of overseeing other people, I have found that a lot of times the perception of laziness or not being committed to their work, similar to the athletes, 95% of the time, there's something going on that's a problem leading to that behavior, right? It's not like by accident, people just don't want to work and hate their job and they wouldn't sign up for the job in the first place, right? They don't just like want the money and none of the work. Rarely, but in the work setting, I think you have to reverse engineer why they're unhappy, right? What's going on that's causing this frustration? I'll give you some examples from my own personal life that I've dealt with staff, but also what I see commonly when I consult with gyms. Okay, so number one, a lot of people become burnt out and not motivated and don't want to kind of put in the effort and show up when they don't feel prepared or educated for what they need to do in their job. Okay, so junior staff, this is the most common place this happens, right? They get thrown to the wolves in preschool classes or preteen classes because you need staff to coach these people, but they don't get proper training that like the high level coaches would get on like how to teach a round off or how to teach a cartwheel. In this case, it's like how to jump on the trampoline safely, how to manage a group of 8 4-year-olds when they're all upset and some people are yelling, how to keep people in line with a nice flow of stations, how to set up stations that are going to be easy to watch, right? They don't get great education on the technical aspect of gymnastics or the managerial side of like working with kids. So that you have to look back on your staff training and your on-ramping and say, like, are we doing the proper service to the new coaches who are maybe just ex-gymnasts or working in college or working in high school? Are we giving them proper training? Are we giving them the tools they need to be successful? Are we giving them mentorship? Are we giving them education? Or are we just asking them to go figure it out? And that is why they're kind of getting frustrated. Okay. So that's number one, is just try to think about, do they have everything they need to be successful? The tools, the education, the space, the equipment, the time, the schedule. If you don't have that in place, you're going to definitely create some resentment within your staff. Okay. Number two, a lot of people tend to burn out, and this is all coaches, not just the younger ones, if they don't enjoy their environment or they don't generally enjoy their job. Okay. So it's not all supposed to be puppies and rainbows. It's hard to coach. It's hard to learn that kind of stuff. But if they don't enjoy what they're doing because it's mundane and boring, or they always have an extremely difficult set of kids to work with at 8 in the morning, right? If they don't have support for that kind of stuff and they don't enjoy their job, that's going to be something that slides downhill really fast. So chances are they enjoy gymnastics. That's why they're coaching, and they also would like to make some money. And you need to make sure that they enjoy their job ongoing wise. So again, it goes hand in hand with the first piece, but find out what they like about their job. Do they need to work with a different age or a different group or a different class? I know a lot of younger coaches who start in the preschool and preteen classes, and then because they're competitive gymnasts themselves, it's hard for them to be able to work with that age group that doesn't have a competitive goal. Maybe they need preteen. Maybe they need like the me and tiny tumblers, we call them at our gym, right? Maybe they just need a different type of format. Whereas some of the people who maybe didn't do competitive gymnastics, but they love kids, if they got the competitive young kids, they'd be overwhelmed. They don't want to teach routines. They don't want to teach compulsory dance. They just want to have fun with kids jumping on the trampoline. So like maybe they need to be more on the preschool side or more the rec side. Okay. So finding the right fit for someone is really, really important. Okay. Lastly, time and money is an important factor, right? Like if you are not getting what your work is worth and you're drastically underpaid, and this happens a lot in young staff, again, because they're doing all their lesson plans outside the gym, all their research outside the gym. They're traveling to meets. They don't get paid properly for their time in their gym, but they also don't get reimbursed for staff meetings or trainings or researching or all that kind of stuff. I'd be pissed too, right? If I spent an extra 40 hours per week or 20 hours per week or 10 hours per week doing tons of work for my job, but it didn't reflect in my pay, or just saying like, hey, thank you, we appreciate you. It's not always monetary. It's just being recognized that you're working your butt off and you're trying to do what's right for the gym. So at our gym, we pay people for staff training. We pay people if they spend hours outside of the gym up to a certain amount for researching. And like, obviously you have to show it with your lesson plans and show it that you're doing. You can't just like lie in your time card, but like paying someone for their time and education, like the medical model does, I think that goes a long way, and it shows you appreciate them, right? Little kind acts of gestures, whether it's taking time to show someone a cartwheel drill and how to do it, or paying someone an hour so they don't have to spend a Saturday morning by themselves at home doing research, right? Those things go a long way. And it's just a small way as a leadership to say, hey, we value you. We value your time. We value your effort. And we value being here and working hard. So I would try to do those things first, and I would see if those are helpful. Okay. Again, the last 5% of people who truly don't want to work and don't want to put in the effort to be motivated and do stuff, it is the exact conversation as the parents. It's the exact conversation as the kids. Ask them what's wrong, try to figure out what's going on, map how their behaviors are maybe not in line with the contract they signed to work, Maybe they don't understand that not wearing a staff shirt and turning your back and talking to a coworker is okay when you're leading a group of 8 people. You have to explain with behavior in a kind way, like, hey, it's okay. This is what we expect. Maybe you made a mistake. We didn't realize it. But now you know. Let's just fix it. Okay. As long as we're okay. And you go through the same 3-step process, right? Of getting people involved. The third step of continually not doing your job is the same natural consequences of the athletes and their behavior. Like I talked about with work, if you don't consistently do your job and you're not safe to coach or safe to lead, you get fired, right? And so that's unfortunate. Again, 0.001%, but Eva has had to fire some junior coaches because they're on their cell phone. They don't bring their staff shirt. They miss work. They don't call up and get a replacement. They show up 10 minutes late. And yeah, if you continue to miss work, you unfortunately have consequences of getting fired. So that happens very rarely, but it's the same conversation everywhere else. So hopefully, Tori, that helps. And then the last one here, I intentionally saved for the very end of all 4 of these podcasts, is from my good buddy, Dan Lonsdale. He said, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it to change one thing in gymnastics, what would it be? And I'm going to cheat and choose 2 because I spent a lot of time thinking about this the last 4 weeks. Okay, the first thing and the most important thing I would change is maybe it's not a change, but I just really want to be at the forefront, is I would really, really want everyone in gymnastics to have a crystal clear, incredibly good understanding of what they're doing in gymnastics and why they're involved. I think what happens sometimes, unfortunately, is we forget our why. We forget why we got involved in gymnastics when we were kids, why we stay involved in gymnastics when it's hard right now, why we keep putting in the hours. We forget that it's really, for me and many other people, is about making a positive impact on young kids' lives that will then create ripple effects down the road in a positive way. Okay. I believe that gymnastics is one of the most amazing sports in the world. I'm biased, of course, but I believe that it has a very rare opportunity to change people's lives and help create great humans. So I personally am involved because of that. Everything with Shift, everything with coaching, everything with my research is based around trying to give back to the younger generation what I was fortunate to get from my coaches and my gym and my staff and the life that I have right now. Okay, so I really would want everyone to maybe spend a couple hours journaling and figuring out, like, why am I here in the first place? What got me in here involved? And just try to really make sure that, again, there's nothing wrong with getting a paycheck. There's nothing wrong with making a living off gymnastics. There's nothing wrong with winning. There's nothing wrong with being competitive. I was not super competitive, but I get that working with a lot of the elites and a lot of the international athletes. I know the competition fuel. There's nothing wrong with that. But if that is your number one main priority and you're cutthroat and you don't want to do anything but get those things, I think you need to really reevaluate what's going on. So that would be my first thing, is trying to make sure that everyone really understands why they're involved and they're led by that every day, again, by their choices. Your choices and what you do reflects if you have a why like that, and your values and your ethics and your morals. Okay. So that would be number one. On a lesser note, I would really love to see the educational system overhauled across definitely the US, but the entire world. And so what I mean by that is we have a lot of great education. We have a lot of great courses and sponsors and people who do that. But I think we need to move to a medical model. I think we need to have a 1-year minimum degree to be involved in coaching gymnastics or, working in that field, where you do half your time is coursework and half your time is mentorship or clinical work, just like the medical model, right? And that would be paid for through a combination of the person and then also the gym that they're working with for this, or organization, maybe with a back end contract, like, okay, if we fund you for this, you have to work for us for 2 years, right? Or something like that. Because that gives you skin in the game and it allows you to be involved a little bit. So I think that would clear up a lot of the frustration and cultural issues with people who don't feel prepared or educated. It would get rid of some of the people who don't want to put in the work or are watering down, unfortunately, the coaching education. And it would also get rid of some of these people who really, in my opinion, don't deserve to be working with kids, because, again, they're that 1 to 5% of people who really are monstrously egotistical and just can't see past their own, blindness. So I would say that's probably like the first part. If you want to work in advanced level gymnastics, so optionals are higher, it's another year of split academic work and split mentorship work, where you go and you find a great coach to train under and you live there for 3 to 6 months and you follow their ways, you learn online. The academic stuff would be a collaboration in a dream utopian world of everybody. Great coaches who have proven to be high-level athletes themselves, or gymnasts, that are not treating kids in an unhealthy way. Expert medical providers, expert researchers from different fields, expert physicians, expert strength coaches who can all give the coaches, people what they need on a practical level, and can maybe translate the science into that for them. About, okay, what do I do in a 45-minute rotation of practice? So you'd have that nice academic piece, but you'd also have the clinical mentorship piece where you could learn how to spot, you could learn how to run a group, you could learn how to teach, you could see somebody interact through problems and learn that way. It works phenomenally well for the medical system. And I think that is where we need to go in gymnastics. So two-part answer there, but I think both of those are probably near and dear to my heart. So with that said, Dan, thank you for that, buddy. That wraps up the 4 weeks. So yeah, if people enjoy this kind of format, I'm happy to sprinkle these in with the longer form discussions. I love having guests on and talking about stuff. But if you guys like this, we'll do some polls after and figure it out. We can have a nice survey form or stuff like that on the website for Shift at shiftmovementscience.com/the Shift Show. You can submit questions. Then on our YouTube channel, every week we put up a new video that's based on the user comments and the user suggestions. So if you want to learn about a topic on YouTube or something, or hear it here, probably the best place to do it is submit a question or put it on YouTube, and we'll pick somebody. Okay. So thank you, everybody, for such a kind feedback the last 4 weeks. I've got a lot of great messages saying this is really helpful. I appreciate you listening. I would not have the opportunity to do this if you didn't listen and follow along. So I really, really do appreciate everyone, and I'm super grateful for you. So yeah, we'll wrap it up here. I tried to go under 30 minutes for all of them, but the culture one is always a little bit longer, so it's okay. But hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you all in the next episode.